Hello, good morning, good afternoon in some places, and welcome to our Google News Lab YouTube live stream. It's Monday, November 23rd, 2020, and I am live streaming from the Bay Area, California. My name is Michael Grant, a teaching fellow at Google News Lab, and today I am very excited to share with you one of our new trainings in our YouTube Live, and this will be how to podcast. So I'm really excited to bring you more information about how you might do this in your newsroom or as a freelancer. And we think this will be a very accessible training. So I'm hoping to onboard you all successfully, and I'm really happy that you're tuned in and hanging out with us today. One thing I'd like to first start with is a word about the Google News Initiative. This is our effort to build a stronger future for journalism. And we have 3 E's that are core to our work in journalism, and that is elevate and strengthen quality journalism, evolve business models to drive sustainable growth, and empowering news organizations through technological innovation. So I happen to be a representative of the first E, which is elevating and strengthening quality journalism. And so as a teaching fellow, I have the great privilege of training newsrooms across the US and even Canada now. And I do this as a shared responsibility with my colleague, Maggie Farley. And so it's been an incredible year for us. We've pivoted to doing trainings online and through YouTube Live and through Google Hangouts Meet. And so feel free to reach out to us, either of us, to schedule a newsroom training for your news organization. I'd also like to mention our news training website. This is g.co/news training. And in here you'll find a number of tutorials, so things that we might not be able to get to today or other things that are outside of podcasting specifically, you can find it here. And what's really nice is that there are simple quizzes at the end of each course, and you can even get a certificate. So if you're interested in things like data visualization or investigative journalism or environmental journalism, feel free to visit g.co/news training. Okay, so why create a podcast? You know, it's a really interesting time in journalism, and we know that mediums are constantly evolving and changing. And so we think it's just another medium or one other way that you can reach audiences. And we also know that there is advertising growth that can be met through podcast platforms. And so if you just look at this quick chart, it shows a snapshot from 2017 to 2020, and we see that the industry brought in almost $500 million in 2017, and then in 2020 we're over $1 billion industry in advertising growth. And so that's pretty significant. What's also significant is that podcast listeners are engaged and they're loyal. Okay, so 7 podcasts are consumed by the average weekly listener, and they have a high completion rate. 93% listen to all or most of the podcast episodes that they listen to. And 54% are more likely to consider brands that advertise on podcasts. So that's awesome. I think not only for publishers who are doing podcasts, but also for brands and advertisers that are interested in being in front of audiences that are engaged. So one of the big questions that you might ask yourself is, what do I even podcast, right? And so one of the cool things right now is that we've seen a shift from the old kind of ad hoc podcasting where, you know, folks would just kind of get together over a microphone and interview each other and just kind of geek out on whatever thing that they're interested in. But if you're a news organization or even a news producer, you can shift with this industry, with our industry, that's shifting to more quality podcasting. All right. And so, according to a recent report by the Reuters Institute, daily news podcasts make up less than 1% of the entire podcast universe, but they account for 10% of overall downloads in the US. So that's huge. That means that of the listeners who are listening to news podcasts, there is, 10% who are, 10% of those downloads account for news overall. So that's pretty significant. So one cool thing that I think you should keep top of mind if you're considering podcasts is that, if you're a news producer or news organization, you're already telling stories. And so some of the questions you can ask yourself before you begin building a podcast are, what audio stories could appeal to my audience, right? You might be familiar with some of the kinds of content that you're producing that resonates well in different mediums like newsletters or in your actual website or maybe your Instagram. So maybe this could be an opportunity for you to explore the kinds of content that might resonate with audiences in audio form. And you want to ask yourself, what will drive them to come back to each episode? Is it the format? Is it a particular news hook? Is it, you have a great host? All those things are questions that you can ask yourself about how you might build a podcast. One thing that we know is that long form journalism is now wildly popular. And so we know this through, the Reveal podcast, for example, or New York Times The Daily. They're seeing really significant growth. And so those are examples that you can maybe tap into to figure out if podcasting can be done in a similar format at your news organization. I'd also like to say that, what you're seeing right now on the screen is a quick workflow for how you might get started with producing a podcast. And so if you have questions about what kinds of subjects could you zero in on, well, if you have specialized reporting in a particular subject, you can go to Google Trends and start to see what's popular or trending around some of the terms that you cover regularly. You can also take those ideas to Jamboard, and Jamboard is just a really fun Google tool that allows you to get teams together on a whiteboard experience that's online, on a screen, and you can put your ideas out there, right, and discuss them as a team. And you can collaborate in Google Docs to start to put together maybe like a prototype or a guide for how you want to maybe produce your show. And one of the cool things that you can also do, I think, is to keep it fresh. Keep going back to things like Google Trends and seeing what's popular and what's trending, right? And trending, I think, is really cool because you can, well, I'll get to that in a bit. We're gonna open up Google, couple of Google Trends pages. Okay, so if you don't know already, Google Trends is a really wonderful tool for understanding what users are searching for online, and it's a good measure of interest. And so when you go to Google Trends, you may see a page like this, all right? And so I pulled these two topics from the Trends landing page. And so it just showed, two trends, dining indoors and dining outdoors. Now, if I am a restaurants editor and I want, or a food editor, maybe I want to start a podcast in my publication for food. And so here's a really cool thing to maybe figure out if there's interest in, so how are people dining during a pandemic? And so now you're seeing by this chart here that not only are people, interested since 2019 in dining indoors and outdoors, but we also understand that, that interest is wildly different now, right? There's more interest in answering these questions because of the situation that we find ourselves living in, right? So this might be a really great way for, a food editor to start to go about sourcing different kinds of interesting trends in food related coverage. Here's a fun one too. This can be for your sports reporters or for your your music reporters, but maybe you want to do a sports podcast or a music podcast. And the reason why I mentioned sports is because Super Bowl is right around the corner now, and we know that The Weeknd is the leading performer for the Super Bowl halftime. But one thing that I did, I know Justin Timberlake did a Super Bowl before. I'm not quite sure if Bieber did, but I just pulled another Justin. But I thought it would be cool to just kind of talk about, or look at trends around, popularity amongst three, leading performers or musicians, and if you're a sports podcast or a sports outlet, you might, do some really fun topics like, looking at performers through the years and, looking how searched they are on Google Trends. So that could be another really interesting way to either, create content around a subject or, just kind of dive a little deeper into, what people are interested in based around, some news events that we know are coming up. And then finally, I think this one is kind of interesting. This is, straight down the line journalism kind of subject area here. So, media bias, misinformation, and disinformation. So if you're covering, trends in media and what people are concerned or searching for, here's a good example. And in this case, I pulled another three. And so this might be something that you can dive deeper into. And I'd like to take this example one step forward. I mean, here's blue, it's media bias. We can see that, that has long been, kind of leading over misinformation and disinformation, but we can see that misinformation has really peaked at some points, as well as disinformation, right? People are searching for it. And scrolling down the page, I want to bring this to your attention because in trends, we're able to see, related queries. So in the disinformation category, I can see the difference between misinformation and disinformation. That sounds like a question to me, and I can see that it's breaking out, which means that it's growing in search interest. And so I just want to pop that out so you can actually see it here. And so maybe that is, maybe we have a podcast about, misinformation, disinformation campaigns and that kind of thing. And then that could be maybe one of the things that we open up the show with, what is misinformation and disinformation? How do you distinguish the two? How do you debunk and things like that? So that could totally be an idea. Now, what I want to do right now is go through the process of ideating. All right. And so all this is a really quick way for us to throw some ideas out on a board and workshop them together. Or we'll just keep this really simple. What I want you to do is to visit this bit.ly link, bit.ly/3 lowercase n, capital Q, capital 0, capital 0. I think that's a 0, FXE. I think Maggie will drop that into the chat for us, but all I want you to do is to throw some podcast ideas up there and, and see what others are thinking about podcasting as well. I'm going to drop one in there. I think I made some post-its on that board. So I'm just hopping over there. I've got some post-its here. You can just click one, drag it over. Double clicking will get you inside of the sticky note. And I'm just going to say Super Bowl podcast. How about Super Bowl music podcast? Awesome. So, you know, if this were something that I was ideating over, one thing I might do is just say, what's related to Super Bowl music, or performers through the years. All right, cool. And then maybe I'll do like, top 100 hits. And maybe another one I'll do is, let's say, embarrassing moments. If I can spell embarrassing. There we go. Cool. Awesome. So this is me, and this is a few things that I came up with, and maybe I'll have a few episodes about Super Bowl music, and have these as each as episodes. So I encourage you all to workshop your ideas together. You would want to invite people into your board, share them, share your board with your colleagues, and come up with a bunch of ideas that you can that'll give life to your podcast. Uh-oh. All right, so moving on. How do you podcast? I think that is one of the things that a lot of people want to crack the nut on, and so here's my best attempt. A really great resource I have found is the Google Podcast Creators Academy. Or I call it an academy, a program. It's Podcasting 101. There's a webpage dedicated to it, as well as an entire YouTube channel. And so there's about 10 episodes that go into the ins and outs of podcasting, and it's everything from recording, mixing and editing. So there's a lot there. And you just take it a course at a time, and we think that'll really be helpful. But you're here with us right now, so why don't we walk through a couple of different steps in the process. So the first thing you're going to want to start with, if you're wondering how to podcast, is you're going to want to start with equipment. And at a minimum, you're going to need at least a computer and a microphone, right? So you'll need the computer in order to access digital files, and you'll need a microphone so that you can record audio. So that's a baseline. But if you want to get more professional, you can have an audio mixer, and you can even introduce things like GarageBand or other music services and music applications that allow you to add things like tracks or sound, like other audio sound and things of that nature. So that's so you can go the minimum route. And oftentimes I encourage people, hey, just ship your minimum viable podcast, right? Like just get the idea there and then try to see if you can grow your baby, right? Like make sure, like you can workshop along the way to like really strengthen the offering that you have via, whether it's, the format itself or the professional execution on that podcast. The next thing you're going to want to do is record, okay? And so if you can think back to, your news instincts, when you're going to cover a story or when you're going to report, you're going to do news gathering. Excuse me. So you're going to do news gathering, and you're going to want to gather your sources and your material in audio, right? And so maybe you'll have an audio recorder that's handheld. You just want to make sure that that can produce a digital file. You can use your phone to record audio interviews, and also you can record remotely. And so a service like Zencastr is really cool because you can invite people to this application, and each one of the guests or the interviewers that are inside of this application will be recorded as a track. All right, so that's pretty awesome. Check it out, and that's Zencastr. Now, editing your podcast is another important step, and that is once you've gotten all your audio, right? You might want to trim the uhs and the ums out. Maybe, there's some parts that went a little long-winded. You're going to want to condense or, edit down some of that audio. And you also want to be mindful of how long, you want your podcast to be. So, if it's a 30-minute podcast, you can't have your guest talk for 29 minutes. You're going to have to cut out, some of the parts that you won't use and just keep the things that are, most core to your show. All right, and there's a lot of tools that you can use to do that. So you can use Audacity, which I'm familiar with. It's easy to download. It's easy to understand how to cut. You can use Ocean Audio, or I think this is Haya.io. I've not used that before, but I did check the webpage, and so it is a pretty minimal tool. Another thing that you want to do to enhance your podcast is pull, sound files into your podcast, right? Or into your audio editing workflow. And so, these can be useful for things like your intro, or maybe you're starting a series and you want to kind of brand your series. And so you can go to some of these places like Freesound or BBC's sound effects website, and you can grab audio files from there. So one thing that I'll do really quickly is go and visit the BBC's website. And these are a bunch of sound effects that they have available for download. Now this is using the RimArc license, so be mindful of that. And these are for commercial use as well. And one thing that I'd love to, kind of make sure is that, we're journalists. You're in the business of accuracy. So you wouldn't want to, throw a bus in there that wasn't in your, your interview if you're doing a recording about buses. But let's just say you were opening up with, with a little bit of a background about what the topic you're going to cover, and you use bus sounds. That would be a great way to use it, right? Hey, I'm getting ready to do a report about bus breakdowns on the interstate and how dangerous it can be. So as I'm saying that kind of thing, I might have some sounds of buses going. And so let's just, now that I said buses, I'm gonna scroll down here to buses. All right, and then I can just hit play here. I think you guys can hear that. Awesome. So that's just an example. So you can listen or preview the file there, and then you can download it. All right. Cool. So there's tons of sounds out there, and these are a few. Audio Library is another one. Looks like they have Audio Library Classic as well. But feel free to check these services out. And if you find a use in them, that'd be great. I'd love to hear about it. The Sounds of the World site is really cool too. So this leverages like the Google, Maps, Google Earth, kind of thing, and you can basically zoom into different areas where folks have captured different sounds, and there might be like nature sounds or just different sounds from that region. So this is another really cool tool. Now it is in French. But if you have your Google Translator extension enabled in Chrome, it will translate the page. And so that will make it easier for you if you're not a native French reader. Okay, great. Another tool that's really cool, and this is usually a surprise for a lot of my in a lot of my trainings. I usually tease this out as a bonus, but this is transcriptional in Google Docs. And the way it works is you go to the tools menu, you go down here to voice typing, you tap the little speaker icon, and then you just start talking to your computer, and it will transcribe, right? So oftentimes we want to know, we may need to transcribe our interview so that we can have a transcription of our interview on our website. Audio is not searchable unless it's transcribed, and so you can use this as a quick way to transcribe some of the notes that you might have captured in some of your interviews. Also, if you're building a script for your podcast, one of the things that you might want to do is to understand, like, how long am I getting in my script, right? And so what's really cool is that you can copy and paste your script here and start to figure out how long it will take you to get through those words. So it'll give you an estimate of how long it'll take to read those words or for those words to be said. And you can specify a reading speed, right? So some people talk very fast. I'm on the average to slow side for how I talk regularly. But you can use this tool as a good gauge to say, okay, maybe I'm getting too long, and start to figure out what you might want to cut out. All right. So it's really cool for gauging the length of that would be needed based on the actual text of audio. All right. Now, at this point, I'd love to introduce another really cool service, and I think this video does more justice than I can in explaining it, but this is AI-powered transcription. Maggie, will you go ahead and play that for us?
Like it or not, there's gonna come a day when you think,
I should record this presentation.
We should do a podcast.
A pod what?
I should start a YouTube channel.
I should record my screen.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
And
we're pushing.
I've
I've
never actually. Oh my god.
We record a lot of stuff.
yep, you do. But before you share it,
Sent.
I don't like this.
you're gonna wanna edit it first.
Uh-oh.
But editing is
Hard, I know. Where do you even start, right? Well, I'll show you where to start. Meet Descript. It's a powerful new tool that makes editing easy. So easy that you'll want to edit videos.
nice. How does it
Work? Well, first you need some video or audio. If you've already got some, just drag it right into Descript. Wait for it.
Hey guys, welcome to my first YouTube video. Hopefully my little guys don't fall.
Whoa.
What?
Nah.
Yeah, it takes your audio and turns it into text. So when this happens,
All right guys, I'm going in.
Sweetie.
What?
Dinner.
I'm doing a thing, Mom!
you can cut it out like this.
Okay.
Oh.
How about that?
But get this, Descript can turn your text back into audio.
I'm pretty sure this is a first edition super rare creature kawaii. I was wrong. It's a 7th edition, more common than water creature kawaii.
It's called overdub. Just type what you meant to say right into Descript.
I'm pretty sure this is a 7th edition creature kawaii.
And for those who need it, Descript has a screen recorder built right in.
Hey everyone. We're pushing a big update today to our content management system.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you right there. This is so boring.
I know.
Check it out.
Hey everyone. We're pushing
With a click, you can remove every kind of, like, and whatever the hell that is.
Hey everyone. We're pushing a big update today to our CMS.
Woo!
That's so cool.
Hey.
And with a few clicks, you can publish your project right to the web and easily share with anyone.
Damn, Jenny. Underestimated you.
And Descript is no slouch either, with support for things like non-destructive multi-track precision editing,
No.
titles, transitions, and keyframe animation,
No.
audio mixing and mastering tools, even exporting your project to other pro apps.
Woo!
And get this, you and your collaborators can work in the app at the same time.
No.
So when you capture media,
Pickle, you mean green?
No, Mom!
Make sure you edit it in Descript.
I think it's Descript.
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 Wow, that was wonderful. So it's really cool because I think it really shows how much things have evolved in terms of tools that are at the ready for journalists. And so when we look at how we want to produce our storytelling, and in this case, if we want to do it with audio, well, there are lots of tools that you can leverage, and Descript would be one of them. So let's really quickly talk about managing your podcast. Now, I know there are lots of services out there, for uploading your podcast, and if audience reaches what you're after, you may want to do that. Google Podcast also has a really nifty way of both finding podcasts that you're interested in listening to. So I highly recommend that you try it out. And there's an app for it as well. But also, you can manage your podcast. And in that manager are things like the ability to upload, a stream for your podcast. You can see analytics, so plays, downloads, and so on. And so it's a fully featured podcast manager that I think is a really nice interface for you to get your podcast and manage it. So highly recommend you check that out. And I just want to say a few words. This is a really exciting time, I think, for journalism, and audio is on the rise. And with devices like your watch, and you've got like the Google home stuff, and like home pods, and there's just so many audio devices that you can summon to even start to play your podcast. And so I think it's a really great opportunity for we journalists to offer more of our storytelling and audio formats. Great. So that concludes our podcast training. Again, feel free to visit g.co/news training for more trainings like this. And you can return, I believe it would be 2 weeks from now, for our next YouTube live training. But yeah, we're really happy that you joined us today. I hope that all the resources that I was able to give you are things that unlock something for the future of your reporting in a different format. And if you want to keep in touch or follow up with any questions, feel free to contact us at newslabsupport@google.com. Again, I want to invite you to training with Maggie or myself. So you can schedule those by reaching out to us direct. My email address is grantmichael@google.com. All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Please stay safe, and see you on the next one.